Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy glory, acting as your lead blocker on the way to hopefully some fantasy championships. As long as you didn't listen too much to me in the last couple of days, you're probably doing fine. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. We are foregoing the usual awesome intro because this is going to be a lightning fast show. We are going to get out of here by the time Sunday Night Football kicks off, which is right around in half an hour. And we got a lot of stuff to go over. It was a great week of football, not for my fantasy teams, but the football games themselves were freaking exciting, and there were definitely some stars out. I just didn't have any of them. How you doing, Wolf?
Largely similar to you. Although I'm in a couple of 50-50s at least, so it's not hopeless quite yet. If Sutton has a big Monday night, things of that nature, I still have slight hope. But yeah, not the right side of the. Well, why don't we just dump into the studs? Because I didn't have any of these guys. And
no, I didn't have any of these guys.
The fantasy world on fire. So as you guys know, before we jump into here, thumbs up means everything, helps us get out to more people. But we're going to go through the stud of the week, the dud of the week. We'll fly through those. It's kind of just quick, meaningless awards. But we will dive into some stats that popped, things that really do matter to fantasy owners. We'll dive into some of the injuries as well that we noticed. And then last but not least, we're trying to be the first people out there with the early waiver wire action that you need. Now, I know you probably can't pick up till Tuesday, but getting ahead, kind of getting the names in your mind, so that way when you get all the articles inundating you, you at least have some fresh, right off the battlegrounds type of information. So that's the goal. While it's all fresh, while the pain, it seems like for you, is fresh, while the confusion is awful for me, let's get going. Let's dive in.
Let's get going. Stud of the week. I'm going to go real quick, like one at each position. We originally, if we were going to talk running back, we were going to say Jonathan Taylor. He had a great game, 31, 161, and a touchdown, added 4 catches. But we actually rethought things, and we decided to give it to Saquon Barkley. 18 carries, 164 yards, and a touchdown. Added 5 catches for 30 yards, which is not nothing. That yardage, that's 9 yards plus a carry. I mean, that's pretty nasty. So he's our stud of the week at running back.
And when I do my big board tomorrow, my rest of season big board, he might be top 2. Honestly, looked so damn good out there. Quarterback stud of the week, Pat Mahomes, 334 yards, 5 touchdowns, a whopping 36 fantasy points, just doing what he does best, bombing the league.
But Wolf, he lost Tyreek Hill.
No Tyreek, no problem, baby. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely the stud quarterback of the week. Runner-up receiver is...
Runner-up receiver? Are we talking? Yeah. I thought we had declared Jefferson the number 1 winner.
Oh, he's the winner. The runner-up was Jamar Chase with 16 targets, 10 catches, 129 and a TD. Although I guess Devontae Adams really started knocking on the door here late with 140 on 10 catches of his own.
10 catches. So, but of course, they were both playing second or third fiddle to Justin Jefferson, who had 9 for $184, I think, and a touchdown. And it just seemed like he even had more than that. I mean, he had 30 fantasy points in like the first half. If anything, they kind of took their foot off the gas. That's how dominant he was. Keep in mind also on Thursday, Cooper Kupp had 13 catches. So the cream's really rising to the top. I mean, what are those, like the top 4 receivers? Those are like the top 4 receivers, right?
Exactly. If you look at the first few picks of fantasy drafts, yes, Taylor panned out, but the rest of the running backs largely underwhelmed in terms of Eckler, Cook, like Henry, very underwhelming. All 4 of the early round studs weren't impressive, but the receivers really showed out. Maybe this is the year that it should have been 0 running back and you should have hammered receivers early and often. It's 1 week, so I'm not going to overreact. But yeah, studs were largely dominated by receivers. In terms of duds, we did mention just in general, running backs underwhelming, but none more so, in my opinion, than Alvin Kamara. Probably my pick for the actual overall dud of the week. 39 yards on 9 carries, 3 receptions for 7 yards. Just bad usage and pretty inefficient, like production. Just didn't look great the whole time. And yes, the offense got clicking, but that was a very Dudley performance.
It was a Dudley performance. And of course, I've got a lot of Kamara stock.
Yeah.
Damian Pierce. How about this? The guy who's going 20. What would you say? He went for 28 in your auction or something like that?
Yeah, just flying up.
Okay. He carried 11 times for 33 yards. They had a game positive script. I mean, like, things they had the lead, almost the whole game. And Rex Burkhead outcarried him.
Brutal.
So that's not a great
sign. 71% of the snaps Rex Burkhead did. Just disgusting, bad utilization, a huge faller on the rest of the season big board. Kyle Pitts, I'll let you take this one because you are more invested in Kyle Pitts than I am.
You're the guy who got me so excited about him.
I'm excited about him. I actually didn't end up with him very often.
Are you still excited about him? Yeah, I have him in one of my leagues. And honestly, if you were going to say who's the biggest dud, I mean, I seriously think he could contend for that title. He had 2 catches for 19 yards. I mean,
abysmal.
Right. I mean, and that game was, that's like Atlanta found a way to lose, as they often do.
And Mariota did have 33 pass attempts, so it's not like it was a tiny aerial pie and just kind of got boxed out. There was a lot of volume up for grabs. He did see 7 targets, but just very unproductive on those 7 targets. Hopefully they can get on the same page soon because, man, he could be early bust. I'd be buying low. I do believe in Pitts long term, but this was not promising. Very good defense, similar to the Rams and the Bills like recently. I'm not going to overreact to these players quite yet, but when they get a good matchup here, if they don't produce, I'm going to start getting nervous for
terrible.
Sure. Last potential dud, but he didn't have huge expectations. Again, I mean, Eckler coming in with 8, McCaffrey with only 13-ish. Like these lead running backs were just a dud of the week. I was very high on Pickens, and he only had 1 catch for 3 yards. And that was pretty, disappointing. I called him like one of my stud bold predictions of the week. So that was Dudley. Overall, for me, though, I go Kamara as the dud of the week. What about you?
I would say Pitts. I thought Najee Harris was worse than Kamara. Now, he did catch a 1-yard pass that got him into the end zone, but, I mean, he had 10 rushes for 23 yards. Yeah, at least Kamara averaged 4.5 yards a carry or something like that. Najee's averaging 2, and, I mean, he did catch a touchdown, but, I mean, he was awful.
Yeah, exactly. And
he's hurt. He's hurt, too.
Right, exactly. He got hurt, and that's why I didn't want to put him on the dud of the week because who knows if he would have made up more ground in the ultimate, overtime. He did score too, so he ultimately wasn't killing you, murdering your lineup like some of the
killed me. One of my teams, my backfield is Kamara and Harris. So
yeah, I do have to shout out too as we went live. Mike Williams, definitely huge dud, 2 fantasy points overall, just absolutely abysmal, absolutely pathetic. Probably ruining my week. If he had a mediocre game, I'd be right in this lineup.
I got Williams too.
Mike Williams, just abysmal.
I got some Williams stock as well.
Yeah, always. Oh, brutal stuff. Shall we just move on now?
Yeah, let's go.
The stats that pop. So I will rip through these. There's just kind of like first positive guys that popped. Jalen Hurts, 243 yards through the air, but most importantly, 90 yards and a touchdown on the ground, the ultimate Konami code. More surprising, and in a waiver wire picks later on, Carson Wentz, 313 yards, 4 touchdowns. The second highest scoring quarterback of the week was Carson Wentz. I think that's more an indictment on the Jags defense. You want to stream QBs against them all the time. But Carson Wentz himself, I mean, these weapons actually look pretty damn good, especially Dotson with those 2 scores. Whew, I really like this rookie. DeAndre Swift moving on to the running back. What do we got, Truth?
Well, I mean, for one thing, this guy, we said a bunch of times, this guy could just end up putting up huge numbers, but neither one of us was trying to get too much stock in him. He went 15 rushes, 144 yards, and a touchdown. He also had three catches for 31. Also, by the way, Jamal Williams scored twice in this game.
Yeah. It's like, think about that. If he didn't get out carried at the goal line, there was 5 goal line carries. Swift got 1. Williams got 4 of them. Imagine if he ever takes that over. It doesn't seem like he will, but let's say Jamal gets dinged up, something of that nature. It could be just to the roof. This would be like Christian McCaffrey 2 years ago type of ceiling. He looked so damn good. That line was opening massive holes, and he just stayed so involved, all the time. Every single third down went to him, all 12 third down snaps, and nearly 70% of the plays is total. Love to see it. Cordarrelle Patterson, 22 carries, 120 and a TD. I mean, right where he left off. We buried it, not us particularly, but the fantasy community buried this guy. He's one of the star players of the week, in my opinion. I was shocked with this.
He was great, and I thought he would be great. It's really more I don't doubt the talent. It's really more the play calling for him and stuff that went downhill last year. So I'm a fan. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a guy neither one of us has been too much of a fan of. He had 74 total yards from scrimmage. I think he had like 42 rushing, 32 receiving, something like that. But most importantly, he scored 2 touchdowns. I mean, pretty much everybody on the Chiefs scored a touchdown or 2. But, I mean, that's a legit fantasy week that Clyde Edwards-Helaire had. And we were all talking about the crowded Kansas City backfield. And but Pacheco scored too, by the way. But anyway, I mean, it's all over the place, and he did great.
And Ronald Jones was inactive, a healthy scratch. So that was one of the big worries with Helaire moving into the season. Was he going to lose short yards work to Ronald Jones? If he's going to be inactive on game days, no worries at all. That was beautiful to see. We already mentioned Barkley as a potential MVP, like early on fantasy candidate. 164 TD and 30 through the air as well. But also intriguing at the running back position was Antonio Gibson, getting 58 yards on the ground, but more intriguing was his 7 catches for 72 yards through the air. Now, he didn't play any 2-minute or third down snaps. They just started to use him more as a receiver on early downs, and he had some crazy catches on there. He monopolized the early down work, right around 80% of the total. So, man, he looked really impressive here. For as long as Brian Robinson's out, you can definitely trust this guy. As long as he doesn't fumble.
Jags running backs, James Robinson actually had 11 rushes for 66. That's a nice line, and a touchdown. And he also scored on a reception for 3 yards. So James Robinson punched it in twice. Meanwhile, Travis Etienne had 4 rushes for 47 yards, which is a pretty amazing clip. And he had 2 catches for an additional 18. I don't see this in the copy under it, but I did watch him drop a touchdown pass like that would have been like a walk-in pretty much. And I know he was overthrown on another one. So he definitely left points on the table, but still, I mean, the backs combined for 113 yards.
Definitely concerning, though, to see Etienne just like this significantly outplayed by a guy coming off an Achilles tear.
Yeah.
Like, Robinson looked great. He looked like his pretty normal self, much unlike Cam Akers the other night. So, yeah, definitely erasing some concern for Robinson. He'll be one of the biggest risers on the rest of the season big board, dominating all the short yardage work, even though Etienne did get the leg up in the third down and 2-minute drill department. Chicago Bears, we did see kind of dominant in terms of snaps early on for Montgomery. Ultimately played 38 of the 55 total snaps, with 17 going to Herbert. But Herbert made his count a significantly lot more. He had 45 yards in a touchdown, more rushing yards on less than half the carries of David Montgomery, and started to take over during the stretch run. You wonder if this starts to flip. There was grumblings that he was the better fit for the zone scheme, something to monitor moving forward.
Browns running backs, we've been talking about how we're fading Nick Chubb because, I mean, obviously it's a crowded backfield. Deshaun Watson is not there. Well, today, I mean, both running backs put up extremely viable fantasy numbers. Nick Chubb rushed 122 times for $141, had 1 catch for 2 yards. Kareem Hunt, meanwhile, 11 rushes for 46 yards and a touchdown. And then he had another touchdown on a catch. He had 4 catches for 24. I mean, if you started both of those guys, you were happy.
Very happy. It's just crazy that I played out almost exactly like we said. Chubb, unbelievable talent, better overall real-life player, more than anybody, 141 yards on the ground, and yet still Kareem Hunt outscored him in fantasy because he just has the more valuable role, which is what was making us a little down on him in the first place.
Yeah, sure.
Pats running backs, you got to be concerned, particularly with Ramondre Stevenson getting these short man on the stick, seeing fewer snaps than Ty Montgomery, who also played 9 of the 10 third down snaps. Ramondre didn't play a single one. Harris played above him on a third down snap as well. So big concern for him moving forward. Didn't look great on his 8 carries, 25 yards. Did have a couple targets and caught them both, but still very concerning usage for him, whereas Harris outcarried him 9-8, outgained him 48-25. And we also saw Montgomery score the touchdown. Just a gross situation overall.
Chase Edmonds had a nothing stat line, 12 rushes for 25 yards, 4 catches for 40. But the significant part of that, not really worth elaborating too much on, but he did out-touch Raheem Mostert 16-6. So he was the guy that was getting the RB1 reps, definitely.
Played 7 of 9 third down snaps, too. Mixon coming in with 82, one of the few early round running backs to pan out, 82 rushing yards, 63 receiving yards on 7 receptions and 9 targets. That increased receiving work was huge. What was weird is he didn't play many third downs. In fact, 13 went to Samaje Perine, only 1 third down to Mixon, but he played the entire 2-minute offense, which was huge for him. So big development for Joe Mixon getting that receiving work.
Bengals Steelers game was ridiculous, by the way. We don't have time to go into it now, but it was just the whole game was just ridiculous.
Nobody could win. It was crazy.
No, but nobody wanted it. Wide receivers, get into it. Don't have any copy under Devontae Adams, but I'll tell you, I watched almost all of that game. 10 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. And I'll just say it was like watching him play in Green Bay. They used him pretty much exactly the same way. Force-fed him the ball like when they were around the goal line. That's how he got his touchdown. Would have had another one, but there was pass interference. They ended up scoring anyway. It was just like watching him with Rodgers. It really was.
It really was. That's summed up perfectly. Tyreek Hill, expanded role, 12 targets. Didn't rack up a ton of yards, 94 yards solid, but a juicy 36.4% target share. Going to be one of those quick hits. He looked like a great fit. I mean, he was running all down the Patriots' throats all day, and this offense is really going to suit him quite well. Good to see if you're a Tyreek Hill owner.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, this is one guy that we liked, and I was right about. I did have him on a team, but he was on the bench, racking up points. Anyway, he paced the Lions in pretty much everything, 8 catches on 12 targets for 64 yards and a touchdown. You have to think Lions are going to probably be down in a lot of games this year, and they're probably going to be chucking him in the ball. This doesn't seem like it's going to be an unusual stat line for him.
No, not at all. And this was one of the harder passes I think he'll face too. Just a precursor of things to some, come. Sippy Cup is what they kind of call him, the Cooper Cup roll. Sippy Cup, I like it. He's just getting that perfect move around roll. Pittman also in that just layup targets that we saw Justin Jefferson.
True.
13 passes. We knew he's going to be the alpha for Matt Ryan. 9 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. Just clear-cut wide receiver 1 that everybody was expecting.
Jarvis Landry actually caught 7 balls on 9 targets. That was a surprise. Him going over 100 yards, 114 yards in the Saints. Big win over the Falcons that they certainly did not deserve, but somehow got it because they were playing the Falcons.
And teammate Mike Thomas going 57 yards and 2 touchdowns on a quote-unquote limited snap count, but he made his count for sure. He only played 7 less than Jarvis and Olave, so he was just about every snap player there. Another surprise 100-yard receiver, Christian Kirk, whopping 12 targets, doing what he did in the preseason, carries right over 117 yards on 6 catches, getting deep for 2 25-plus yard gains. He's the number one by a clear country mile. Good to see.
The Kirk stat line didn't surprise me as much, but because who else are you throwing the ball to?
Right.
Robbie Anderson had 5 catches on 8 targets for 102 and a touchdown, including one super long one that I saw. It was like 70 to 80 yards or something.
That's where he did all of it.
Right. That was pretty much all of it, but great fantasy day for him.
And it was just nice to see because Baker's deep accuracy was almost double the completion percentage of Sam Darnold. And to see these guys hit it off right away, you got to feel much better about being he was going late. He might still be on there on a ton of waiver wires. That I actually didn't even think to put him on the waiver wire list, but I bet you he's out there in more leagues. I would check it out. One receiver we didn't talk about that I have to mention, 10 catches on 13 targets, 155 yards for A.J. Brown.
How did we forget
Only thing he didn't do was get into the end zone. He had 128 yards in the first half. It was clear he was the absolute engine of this offense. Did Devonta Smith, he might have had 1 catch, 2 catches? He had
a medium, small production, definitely.
It was abysmal. It was not even close. It wasn't a 1A, 1B. It wasn't even a 1-2. It was, I am the alpha. I am taking everything that Jalen Hurts has. It was awesome. Great to see.
We hit a couple tight ends real quick. Pat Freiermuth, 5 catches on 10 targets for 75 yards in their Week 1 win over the Bengals. I saw a lot of this game, and he was definitely Trubisky's safety valve, although Trubisky was often not super accurate going at him. That's why he only had 5 catches on 10.
And Travis Kelce, but the 10 targets is what you really want to see.
Yeah.
That safety valve, it was clear they had a nice rapport there. Kelce, I think he actually led the Steelers in receiving, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct.
Regardless, Travis Kelce, 8 catches, 121 in a TD. First drive, it was just like old times. They're unstoppable, and it's clear he's going to be the main attack. Juju did also pace the team in targets, if I'm not mistaken. That was kind of ending right as we got on air. I don't know his final stat line. I will look it up as you get to some of these negative stats real quick.
All right. So on negative stuff, some of these we were finishing the agenda last minute. It's tough. The game's end, we get right on the air. We'll say the one quarterback negative stat line that stood out was that Joe Burrow had 5 turnovers. Now, Charlie in the comments says Burrow's 18 with 5 turnovers was disappointing, but the quietest 25 to 30 point performance of the week. He says you should smash buy low if any owners are pissed and panicking.
100%. Yeah, that's what I was going to say is he couldn't have played a worse real life game at multiple times and still put up 25 fantasy points. It's only going to get better for him and this entire Bengals offense.
Sure. Running backs also. Christian McCaffrey, a little disappointing. And you texted me at halftime, McCaffrey 3 carries, WTF. Well, he ended up only getting 10 carries. 10 carries for 33 yards. He did score, and he had 4 receptions, but that's only for 24 yards. You look at the other top running backs. You look at what Saquon did. If you look at what Jonathan Taylor did and stuff, it's like they had as many or more receptions as him and a much higher really clip. It was a bad game.
Exactly. The low receiving total is really what frightened me. The guy has been a top 5 running back, and I believe 90% of his last games played. This was going to be far from it. So not hitting the panic button. Just the Browns are going to bleed clock against teams, and that's what really happened here. But ultimately, a concern. Definitely want to see more from him in his first game back in a long time. Bunch of shitty receiver performances. Nico Collins. A lot of people asking if I have to hold on to this guy. No, he's just a jag. Could maybe be a touchdown threat. Mike Williams, fucking like 2 fantasy points. I think he ended up with 2 catches for like 10 yards. Yep. Just abysmal. Darnell Mooney, too. Supposed to be a target hog. 1 catch for 8. Like, oh, that was ugly. And David Campanile coming on and shouting out the first commentator, Renfro, this, alpha guy that's going to dominate in the Julian Edelman role. I was all about it. 3 catches for 21. Not the debut you want, as Adams just vacuums in everything.
Tight ends, Isaiah Likely. There was a little bit of hype about him coming into the season. 0 catches on 4 targets, so nothing to get too excited about. They were playing the Jets, though, so that's probably pretty tough on him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mark Andrews, his running mate, also not that impressive with just 5 catches, 52 yards. So about the second rounder you were going for. We talked a lot about how he was due for regression, not a second-round pick we were targeting, and this was kind of why, because he led the targets. 23.4% was leading the team. That was only 7 targets. They're back to their run-heavy ways. They have some deep threats. Lamar's always been more wing it out to the wideouts. He really benefited Mark Andrews from Huntley taking over. So, yeah, that was pretty concerning.
Cole Kmet, a guy who I said if I had to punt tight end position, I might consider taking him. Well, he ran 16 routes. He got targeted 1 time, and he didn't catch it. A goose egg for Kmet.
Awful. And a guy that's going to be a nice segue into, we'll hit injuries and then waiver wire. Taysom Hill, though, tight end Taysom Hill, apparently. 81 rushing yards on 4 carries and a touchdown. I don't know that you can always depend on that, but, man, given the way tight end's just like a punting situation, I think he's going to find the end zone a lot more than most tight ends this year, even though it's going to come on the ground and not through the air.
All right, we're going to fly through injuries and then try to touch on waivers by the time we finish. So, a lot of these injuries we don't have any real clarity on. We can just tell you that they got banged up, they left the game, or whether they came back or not. Najee Harris.
We do it, guys. If you don't mind, we've got a bunch of you with us. I love this, that people showing up for the tailgate. It's giving me a little bit of energy after a pretty tough fantasy day overall. So that thumbs up button, though, does continue to help us grow and get out to more people. Thank you so much for spending your pregame with us as we get ready for a great game tonight. I cannot wait for that. One more great piece of action. But yes, thumbs up. Greatly appreciate it. Let's hit these injuries, baby.
Najee Harris had a leg injury. Like we said, he, after 10 carries, 23 yards, and a kind of lucky receiving touchdown, he did leave the game, and he did not come back. That's all we know so far.
Warren did seemingly take over. We'll talk about him more in a sec. Higgins did not return with a concussion. We saw Jamar Chase evolve into a target hog, 16 targets in his absence. Should he miss the game, Higgins, against the Cowboys, I imagine this would be like a 50-point day for Jamar Chase.
Keenan Allen left the game with a hamstring injury in the second quarter in their win against the Raiders. He was on his way to a big game. 4 catches on 4 targets, 66 yards. I mean, he just looked like his old self. But part of his old self is he gets injured a lot, and he got injured in this one. So hopefully it's not too severe.
I'm paving the path to 2 fantasy points to Mike fucking Williams. Am I clearly
and like 2 fantasy points for like Josh fucking Palmer.
Yeah.
I mean, another guy
Gerald
was
Everett's the one that ended up picking up the steam, I guess. Oh, God.
Every backup tight end they had, too, seemed to be involved.
Yeah. Eli Mitchell suffered a knee injury, did not return. He was off to a good start, 41 yards on 6 carries, played 17 of the first 19 snaps, was workhorse Mitchell again, but ultimately he led that led to Jeff Wilson coming in. Tyrion Davis-Price was not in. He was inactive this game. Almost exclusively Jeff Wilson from there. Didn't do a whole ton, but still the guy that you're going to want to look to on the waiver wire.
MVP of the Giants training camp, Wan'Dale Robinson, was forced from New York's Week 1 game against the Titans. He had a knee injury. He did not come back.
Ooh, and he was my sleeper of the week on DraftKings. That one really tanked the lineups that were doing actually quite well going into it. Damian Williams he was forced from Atlanta's game. That probably led to Cordarrelle Patterson having such a monster game, the first 100-yard rusher of the 2022 season. Cordarrelle Patterson, who would have put your money on that? Not me. But still, he dominated in his absence. I imagine Tyler Algier might get elevated. Williams was a guy that a lot of people stashing to see as the starter, and he got the first carries, but bam, hurt very early on.
We're going to hit the waiver wire real quick. The Wolf may want to elaborate on some of these. We don't have a ton of time, but I know he has a couple thoughts. I'll just throw him a couple softballs here. Jahan Dotson, who a lot of people really like going into the season. In the first place, he's 22% owned. Well, he had 2 touchdowns. Carson Wentz, a lot more productive than we thought. Curtis Samuel also had a decent game. He's only 4% owned. He actually caught 8 balls on 11 targets for 55 and a touchdown. So both those stat lines, nothing to sneeze at. You like these guys?
I sure do. And honestly, if you're hurting at quarterback, Carson Wentz, the second highest quarterback scorer of the week. He's only owned in about 10% of leagues right now. Starting Matt Ryan this week with Trevor Lawrence on the bench. We'll certainly be looking to add him. All of these guys are viable. In particular, Dotson, like some of the catches were just stud NFL receiver catches already. The stuff that you love to see at Penn State, contested grab on his second touchdown. It was beautiful. The guy is going to be involved. I think he played every single snap.
Yeah.
And Samuel involved as a rusher too, just seeing that unique role carry over. A couple handcuffs that you want to keep your eyes out for on the waiver wire. One is Jaylen Warren. Najee Harris was ruled out and he did not return. Warren ended up picking up the majority of those snaps, including overtime, made a few real nice pass blocks. Now, the stat line wasn't great. 3 carries, 7 yards, like just very uneventful. But the fact that he showed well in pass protection, was a near every down player. We know Tomlin prefers a workhorse if he can have it. So he's a definite handcuff. Jeff Wilson as well. We mentioned Eli Mitchell's injury. He saw 9 carries for 22 yards and had 2 catches for 8 yards. Again, not lighting the world on fire, but in 2 fill-in starts 2 years ago, the guy had 30-point days. I mean, the ceiling is there. He led the team in rushing and touchdowns just a couple of years ago. Someone I would definitely be adding, and maybe you consider Jordan Mason as well in a tandem with Jeff Wilson.
And of course, we mentioned Taysom Hill earlier. He's only 9% owned, the quarterback / tight end. I mean, obviously, if he does anything at either position, you get points for it. If he's in the game, he had 4 rushes, 81 yards, and he had a touchdown. Worth a thought. That's all. Also, as far as tight ends go, Logan Thomas, This is the stat line we had written down. He had 3 passes caught for 45 yards. He was split in time, but he was targeted 20% of the time he ran a route. So that's something in a position that's so hit or miss. You could probably do worse than Logan Thomas. Yeah,
he was a true alpha the last time out there too at the tight end position. So I expect coming off the surgery, they were ramping up his activity. I would move to Logan Thomas before Taysom Hill, but man, it's a good dice roll. Like he's going to be involved every single week. Yeah. Another running back for you is Rex Burkhead. I hate to admit it, but again, 70% of the snaps compared to Dameon Pierce, 14 carries for a sickening 40 yards. Did also have 5 catches for 30 yards. Did not look good on any of the touches. It was a gross show. You've got to hope they move more with Dameon Pierce moving forward, but that type of volume serves a purpose, and certainly during bye weeks, if this does not end up fixing itself, check out Rex Burkhead if you're desperate at running back for some volume.
Dontrell Hilliard, only 6% owned, 3 catches, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns to go along with a couple carries for 8 yards. I mean, he would have been better than any player that I started at his position.
Yeah. So, I mean, he scored over 20 fantasy points. He's going to be, I guess we should have mentioned him with talking about Henry as a dud. He played almost exclusively Hilliard, all the third down snaps, and really looked good. I mean, again, 2 touchdowns in the red zone, like very heavily involved there. And we saw Henry start to elevate his receiving role last year, was on pace for about 35 catches, which would have been a career high. If that type of ceiling is removed, you know, you're still going to get monster days from Henry every now and again, but you are hoping he'd get some of that receiving work. Hilliard thrived. I don't see that changing. Definitely a guy, and he has the handcuff with benefits type of upside. Maybe my favorite, like, sneaky play. I've always liked the player. I saw him smash my Patriots. I know I'm going long on him, but I think he might end up being my preferred target on the waiver wire this week. Certainly over 2 guys I consider fool's gold. The last 2 names we'll toss out there. Devin Duvernay, 5 catches, 54 yards, and 2 TDs. He might be less of the fool's gold. He's also already 30% rostered. I was shocked to see that, like already highly owned out there. In my family league, my cousin streamed Devin Duvernay today. Like,
what?
Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, like 2% started and 2% was against me, of course. So nice game for him. And Lamar has hyped this guy up time and time again. I still don't buy that you'll ever know when it's consistent. A guy I wish I took more in best ball, though, because I think he'll have some blowups. A guy that I think is 100% fool's gold is O.J. Howard. Yeah. He did have 2 touchdowns, though, 38 yards, and both were nice, deep seam routes. They did have a tight end need. I thought it was Brevin Jordan filling it, but Howard did play more often than all of us expected, and certainly as a potential touchdown threat. I guess if you're desperate, but I would go to Taysom Hill first. I'd go to Logan Thomas first. O.J. Howard, I think, was fool's gold. Yeah,
me too. We just got through everything, dude. Kickoffs in
7 minutes. That's pretty efficient. That's a whole week and 30 minutes, Wolfpack. Thank you guys so much for being here. We'll hit, we have 7 minutes till kickoff. So I guess we hit.
Let's take a few
questions as we can, leading up to those 20 minutes. The good news is at least a few of them are our good old friends at 69mega.com tuning back in. Huge fan of the show.
David says, Wolf, we need to talk about a few things. Renfro was nowhere to be found. What the hell? Second, I'm up 16.7. He has Javonte left. Thoughts if I can pull out the W. What do you think?
Oh, man. I think he'll be – it's going to be a sweat because they did say they're going to alternate running backs a bit. They said they're going to ride the hot hand. You just got to assume the hot hand immediately goes to Javonte, though. And if he thrives and it's a Seahawks defense that gave up bottom 3 in terms of points allowed, they were very generous to running backs. You're right on the fence. I truly would call that a coin flip. I wouldn't be shocked if Williams goes for 25. I wouldn't be shocked if Gordon vultures a couple touchdowns and then he only has like 14 and you barely squeak it out. We do have a call in too.
David, I think you're going to win, but I've been wrong about every single thing I've said in the last 3 days.
The kiss of death from the truth. Let's pull up our call in. We got Steven Malvasi. You still there with us, Steven?
Hey, boys. How are you?
What's up, Steve?
Hey, we're doing good, Steven. Hey, thanks for tuning in.
Oh, anytime. First time, long time here. I'm pulling my hair out after week 1. I bought into the Travis Etienne hype, and it looks like, James Robinson's not giving the job up. My question to you would be, do I ride the Nyheim Hines wave, or do I just play it safe with Kareem Hunt against the Jets next week?
Ooh, if we're looking ahead to week 2, and that's way more than I've already researched, but Kareem Hunt against the Jets, that just like, as soon as you said
juicy.
it, I perked up a little bit. That is
pretty juicy.
Very damn juicy. So looking ahead to week 2, I would look at Kareem Hunt there. I would definitely bench Etienne, though. I'd be a little bit worried how good James Robinson looked. I mean, he's right back.
Right. Yeah. Do we look at it and just say leave Etienne on the bench for right now, or you kind of got it, right? Matchup.
I would go Kareem Hunt next week over Etienne, though. I would. So yeah, tune in though to the show, Steven. I appreciate it. Nice calling. Keep calling in, man. It's always great to have you. Cheers.
Appreciate it, fellas.
See you, bud.
Have a good night. Good
luck.
Love
the calling.
Right. I love the call. We got like 15 call-ins this morning. It was awesome.
Duckworth. Yeah. I was actually watching you guys for a while. Duckworth. Duck says the Wolf and the GOAT himself, the truth. Thanks, Duck. We appreciate it. Clay says Barkley with a couple money bags.
Hell yeah.
Mahmood, what's going on, guys? How about JJ? JJ was probably the stud of the week, dude.
Yeah, JJ got our stud of the week award. Well deserved. If you were drafting today, and I'm gonna be doing my rest of the season big board, it will be up tomorrow night at some point. Like, would you go Jefferson first overall if you were drafting tomorrow? I think I would.
I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say because the guys right around him, with the exception of McCaffrey, were freaking incredible.
I know.
Jonathan Taylor was great. Cooper Kupp was great. I mean, I don't know. You can't diss Cooper Kupp too much. He had 13 fucking catches. Like,
it would be a fun, whether we did it as an exercise or just a show, to like just do a redraft right after week 1, just the massive overreaction first draft of the year. I would 100% do it. I bet we could get at least 6 other Roto guys and just like whip one together.
I'm in.
That would be great.
We could write an article on it.
Draft after 1 week of overreactions. I would love that.
Kevin Rice says, "What's up, boys? I had Kamara, Henry, Mike Williams, and Pierce. Ouch, 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 ouch.
Yeah.
Today, live to fight another day." I look, my lineup wasn't much better than that, Kevin. I had Cordero on the bench. You think he has legit low end RB1, high end RB2 all year?
I don't think. It's tricky because Damian Williams did get hurt, so I imagine how involved he may have been. I don't think it would have been anything crazy. So, yeah, I mean, Cordero looked as good as he's ever looked. And I think we discredit the fact that he had an ankle injury last year. Like, he had a bad injury, didn't look himself, and then was kind of miscast as a up-the-gut, plotter. Yeah. He looked way back to that explosive self early on. I really liked it. So, yeah, I think quality RB2 rest of year. Patterson, unless he gets hurt. I really like what I saw. I mean, how could you not?
I agree. He looked really good. Duck says my home league, I have JJ and Chase.
Oh, my God. That's just a beautiful thing.
It's pretty good. Tunes, meanwhile, in contrast, Tunes has Kyle Pitts in all 4 of his leagues.
Oh, God. You went all in, man.
Yeah.
Better days are ahead. I'd be buying low at this point. But yeah, scary, spooky, not what you want to see.
Bulldog says, "What's up, guys? Thoughts on Pitts?" We've already addressed that.
we addressed that. Word of the week.
I didn't love it, Bulldog. I didn't love it.
No.
Daniel Highland said his worst player was Gabe Davis with 18 points. LOL. The rest of the team carried him, putting up 188, 1-0.
You should have just tossed your lineup into DraftKings and made yourself a smooth Millie, Daniel. Now
seriously, Gabe Davis is your worst player. You did okay. Austin Firster, not bad for snagging Barkley, 2nd round, pick 8. Yeah, he's a definite value pick right now.
I know. Sure. I'm kind of regretting everywhere where I went Kamara, like no brainer over Barkley. Oh, that's tough because Barkley looks like he is just fully back.
Craig, so well, sure. I regret it now.
I would go
if we were redrafting, I sure wouldn't be taking.
I cannot wait to do this. We have to do this. This would be fun as hell.
I'll do it.
But I would go Barkley over Christian McCaffrey tomorrow if I was drafting.
Yeah, me too.
They both have the same injury risk. Barkley looked fucking.
Of course. Now I want to know we got to go in like 1 minute, but I would too, but I want us also to. We know Barkley's great, but it was a few years ago that you and I did a team together and we drafted Kelvin Benjamin and he had a great week 1. And you and I were legitimately talking about. We were legitimately like he's like the 3rd or 4th best wide receiver.
That'll be the fun part of overreacting.
Right. I mean, we just like I remember. AJ Green had a really big week one time, and we were just like, yeah, he's like the 1st or 2nd best receiver. I mean, AJ Green is great, but he was like the 10th best. But like based on that first week, we were just like, yeah, I mean, he's like God. So don't overreact too much to 1 week. But with that said, it would be a really fun activity.
Now, Denny bringing up, he correcting me. I thought Devonta at least had a catch. He said no catches.
Denny's a Philly guy. He's probably right.
What a game for you guys too. I mean, that was an exciting one with the Lions keeping it tight. You just target Lions shootouts all year is going to be a DFS strategy for me moving forward. But no catches. So one of the biggest fallers this week. I already was really low on him. I have Devonta nowhere. I'm happy about that. But man, that was tough.
Eagles should probably be really concerned about giving up 35 to the Lions, by the way.
Up and down for Sarno. It is week 1, though. A lot of information gleaning. And again, not trying to overreact to this. Higgins, Mitchell, tough shades when you lose those guys. And I think that's we had a couple more. We do. I know we got to get out of here for the game. I fucking hate Baker. I'm with you, Zach. It's always such a pain in the ass to see him. Juke Collier, good or bad idea to trade for Najee? It really depends on the injury. Like, how could we tell you without knowing that? I see the logic behind it, and if you as owners panicking, you can buy him cheap. Sure, but I'm not there.
Hey, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question just before we get off the air? Because I know we got to go.
Yeah.
How soon before we see Jimmy G?
Oh, man, you think they panic and just go right back to him?
I mean, I don't think they will this week, but I mean, look, we were talking about how favorable a schedule the 49ers had. They have 2 gimmies right out the chute. Like, I think they have Seattle next week. And, this week everyone's like, well, it's a, guaranteed win against the Bears. They got fucking beat by the Bears. Trey Lance didn't look good at all. He didn't look good at all. You got Jimmy G sitting on the bench. Guy took you to like the conference championship game last year.
And they have an easy match.
And he was injured. I think
it's the Texans next week. If you lose that, I think you go back. I honestly I think this team, Shanahan will say, I know I can win with Jimmy. We're going to go back to him. I'd be very worried if I was a Trey Lance. Yeah, that's a good name. We didn't really talk about him as a dud. He was a definite dud.
The 49ers were a dud.
As a whole, one of the worst game plans. They didn't really let him uncork it, but he didn't really show any reason to have confidence in uncorking it, I
mean, I feel like the Bears are like a 3-14 team.
Yeah. Yeah, they're back.
And they beat the 49ers.
Losing the week, 49ers. We should end on that and end on the fact that, yes, the thighs of A.J. Dillon and Saquon Barkley. Next year, I'm just drafting strictly on quads. Like, it clearly was an A-plus strategy this year. Those quads will carry you to a tighter. Chicago's underrated.
No, I don't know about that. I said they're 3-14. It's possible. They might be 5-12.
Fucking this little shit, CJ. Imagine the 49ers knowing you destroyed your future by selecting Lance over Fields. Oh, man.
They got Jimmy G. They're fine.
CJ did bring up 2 Lawrence overthrew Etienne. So, I'm not even down completely on him. It's more so Robinson just looked so damn good that you can't think Etienne's going to ever be a feature back this year unless there's another injury. That's more so.
To be fair, we did say both of those things when we were talking about Etienne.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for reiterating it for us, DJ. And as we mentioned, you heard our early waiver wire. I think both those guys are good pickups. Warren would be the number 1 pickup of the week if we hear that Najee's out. All righty, folks.
All right, let's get out of here.
And I don't want to keep you later. In a world full of fancy sheep, guys, be the wolf. Thanks again so much for being here. I'm the wolf.
I'm the truth.
RoastRejournal.com. We'll breed and feed you. Thumbs up on the way out. Thanks, guys.
Later.
Later.